When your best friend suddenly disappears from your life, and a week later you understand why. It's already too late to change anything. I never planned to become the person who destroys someone else's family. But life doesn't ask about your plans, it just happens. My name was Thad, I was 31, and I worked as a tour guide in Portland. My job was to show people the beauty of Oregon, tell stories about waterfalls and forests. I always loved freedom, so I never aspired to serious relationships. Christian was my friend from college. We studied business administration together, though I quickly realized that office life wasn't for me. Christian, on the other hand, opened a small sporting goods store. Business wasn't going great, competition in the city was fierce, but he held on. I had known his wife Sophia for about 5 years, even before their wedding. She worked as a kindergarten teacher and was always the kind of person who knew how to listen. Everything started last spring. Christian became strangely cold. He stopped answering calls, canceled our meetings. I thought business problems were eating him alive from the inside. Sophia, however, started texting more often. At first, she just asked for travel advice for kindergarten clients, then conversations became longer. She complained that Christian had become distant, constantly working. Even their golden retriever Charlie spent more time alone. I didn't notice when our conversations turned into something more. One evening she invited me for coffee. We sat in a small cafe by the river, and she cried, telling me she felt lonely in her own house. I hugged her. Just hugged her. And then everything changed. The next 3 months were chaos. We met secretly, and each meeting was filled with guilt that I tried to suppress. Sophia said she loved Christian, but felt he hadn't loved her for a long time. She wasn't looking for new love in me, but confirmation that she was still someone important. And I just couldn't refuse her. Not because I loved her. I understood this wasn't love. It was an escape from reality for both of us. Everything fell apart one June evening. We were sitting in my car by the lake, where I often led tourist groups. Sophia was telling me something about work when suddenly someone knocked on the window. Christian stood there with such an expression on his face that I felt cold. He didn't scream, didn't bang on the glass. He just looked. Then he turned around and walked to his old pickup truck. Sophia rushed after him, but he had already driven away. She returned to the car, trembling. I drove her home, and we sat near their house for another hour, not knowing what to do. Charlie was barking in the yard, sensing her presence. Finally, she got out, and I drove home, realizing I had just lost my best friend. For a week, Christian didn't contact me or Sophia. She stayed at her sister's place, trying to call him every day. I also called, texted, asked for forgiveness. Silence. When I came to his store, it turned out it was closed for a week due to family circumstances. But Christian wasn't sitting idle. As it turned out later, he had hired a private detective a month ago. He noticed changes in Sophia's behavior, found suspicious messages on her phone. The detective tracked us, photographed us, documented every meeting. Christian had evidence, dates, locations, photographs. He was preparing. Then came the week that changed everything completely. It was a Thursday evening, and Sophia texted me saying Christian was supposedly at a business meeting with suppliers until late. She asked if I could come over. I knew it was wrong, incredibly wrong, but I agreed. This wasn't the first time we had been at their house when Christian wasn't home, but it was always during the day, always brief. This time felt different. I parked my car 2 streets away, as usual, and walked to their house. Charlie greeted me at the door, wagging his tail. He knew me well from all the years of friendship. Sophia looked nervous but tried to hide it. We had dinner that she had prepared, drank wine, and talked about nothing important. The house felt strange without Christian, like a stage set for a play that shouldn't be happening. Around 10 o'clock, we moved to the living room. The conversation died down, and that tension that had been building between us for months became unbearable. Sophia looked at me with those eyes that were asking for something I shouldn't give. But I did. We kissed, and then we went upstairs to their bedroom. I remember every detail of that room. The wedding photo on the nightstand. Christian's jacket hanging on the chair. Charlie's bed in the corner. And I remember thinking that I should stop, that this was crossing a line we could never uncross. But I didn't stop. We were in bed when we heard it. The front door opening downstairs. Charlie's excited barking. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. Sophia's face went white. We both froze, but it was too late to do anything. The bedroom door opened. Christian stood in the doorway. He didn't rush in, didn't yell. He just stood there, his phone in his hand, recording. The light from the hallway behind him made him look like a dark silhouette. I'll never forget the sound Sophia made, not quite a scream, more like a wounded animal. I grabbed the sheet, trying to cover myself, trying to find words that didn't exist. "Don't stop on my account," Christian said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "I want to make sure I get good footage for the lawyer." "Christian, please," Sophia sobbed, reaching out to him. 6 years, he said, still not moving from the doorway. 6 years I gave you. I worked 60-hour weeks at that store to keep us afloat. I came home exhausted every night to a wife who barely looked at me. And now I know why. It's not what you. I started, but the look he gave me cut off the words. "In my bed, Thad. In my fucking bed. You know what? I actually want to thank you. Because now I don't have to feel guilty about what I'm going to do to both of you." He lowered his phone and walked out. We heard him go downstairs, heard Charlie follow him, heard the front door close. Sophia collapsed, crying hysterically. I got dressed as fast as I could, my hands shaking so badly I could barely button my shirt. When I went downstairs, Christian's truck was gone. So was Charlie. That was the last time Sophia and I were alone together. The next day, everything began to unravel at a speed that made my head spin. For a week, Christian didn't contact me or Sophia. She stayed at her sister's place, trying to call him every day. I also called, texted, begged for forgiveness. Silence. When I went to his store, I found it closed with a sign saying temporarily closed for renovations. But Christian wasn't sitting idle. As it turned out later, he had hired a private detective a month ago. He had noticed changes in Sophia's behavior, found suspicious messages on her phone. The detective had tracked us, photographed us, documented every meeting at the lake, every coffee date, every stolen moment. Christian had evidence, dates, locations, photographs. He was preparing. And that night at the house, he had set it up. The business meeting was fake. He knew Sophia would invite me over. He wanted to catch us in the worst possible way, and he succeeded. And then began what no one expected. 2 weeks after that night in his bedroom, people from the IRS visited me. It turned out someone had sent an anonymous complaint that I wasn't declaring all my income from private tours. It was true. I received part of my money in cash and didn't always include it in my declarations. An audit began. Simultaneously, Sophia received a letter from Christian's lawyer demanding divorce. But this wasn't just any divorce. Christian had gathered evidence that Sophia had used their joint money for our meetings, restaurants, gifts. He demanded compensation. Moreover, he sent copies of all evidence to the management of the kindergarten where Sophia worked, hinting at her improper behavior and moral qualities. He included the video from that night, edited to show just enough to destroy her reputation without being explicit. Sophia lost her job within a week. The official reason was downsizing, but we both knew the truth. Her reputation in the local community was destroyed. Parents of children she had cared for started spreading rumors. In a small neighborhood, news travels fast. Some parents even filed complaints with the state board, questioning her fitness to work with children. The IRS audit found violations totaling $12,000. I faced a huge fine and possible criminal charges. I lost my tour guide license for 2 years. My business, which I had built for 5 years, collapsed within a month. I had to sell my car to pay the fine and lawyer fees. But the worst was yet to come. Christian filed for divorce with demands to split property. Their house, which they had bought with a mortgage 6 years ago, had to be sold. Sophia wanted to keep at least Charlie, but Christian proved that he had bought the dog with his own money before the wedding, and took the dog. He even had the original purchase receipt and registration papers. During the court proceedings, many dirty details came out. Christian's lawyer demonstrated photographs, messages, bank statements. He presented a timeline of our affair with such precision that it was clear the detective had been following us for months. Sophia cried at every hearing. I was there as a witness, and every glance from Christian pierced right through. There was no anger in his eyes. There was the cold determination of a man who had decided to destroy those who had betrayed his trust. The lawyer revealed that Christian had known about us for 2 months before that night. He could have confronted us earlier, but he wanted to be strategic. He wanted to catch us in the worst possible way, gather irrefutable evidence, and plan his revenge methodically. Every step was calculated. My client, the lawyer said during one hearing, discovered the affair but chose to document it thoroughly. He wanted to ensure that when the truth came out, there would be no room for denial, no possibility of reconciliation, and no mercy in the proceedings. The house sold at market price, each receiving half after paying off the mortgage. That was about $30,000 each. But Christian didn't stop there. He filed a civil lawsuit against me for intentional interference with marital relationship. Such a possibility existed in our state. The court awarded him $15,000 in damages. With my lawyer fees and the IRS fine, I lost everything. But Christian had one more move. He posted a review on every tour guide platform I had ever used, detailing how I had used my friendship to manipulate his family. He didn't mention the affair directly, but he worded it carefully enough that anyone reading between the lines would understand. My professional reputation was destroyed. Clients canceled bookings. Partner agencies stopped recommending me. I lost everything. My job, my savings, my reputation. I had to move back in with my parents at 31. Sophia moved to another city, trying to start over. She texted me several times, but I didn't respond. I understood that there had never been real feelings between us, just an escape from problems. She loved Christian but sought attention elsewhere. I was just available, and it turned out to be the biggest mistake of my life. The divorce proceedings took 6 months. Every hearing was torture. Christian's lawyer was relentless, painting Sophia as a manipulative spouse who had taken advantage of her husband's hard work and dedication. They showed how she had spent marital funds on our meetings, how she had lied repeatedly, how she had violated the sanctity of their marriage in their own home. Sophia tried to argue that their marriage had been failing long before I came into the picture. She talked about how Christian had become distant, how he prioritized work over their relationship, how they hadn't been intimate in months. But every argument she made was countered with evidence of her deception. The defendant claims the marriage was failing, Christian's lawyer said, but the evidence shows she never attempted counseling, never had an honest conversation with her husband about her feelings, and instead chose to betray him with his best friend. That's not a failing marriage, that's a failed character. The judge wasn't sympathetic to Sophia. In the end, the divorce was granted with terms heavily in Christian's favor. He kept Charlie, got his half of the house sale, received compensation from me, and walked away with his reputation intact. Sophia lost her career, her home, her marriage, and her standing in the community. A year later, I accidentally ran into Christian on the street. He looked different, thinner, but there was a confidence in his eyes. It turned out his business started developing after the divorce. He took out a loan, expanded his inventory, hired a manager. The store was thriving. Charlie was running beside him on a leash, looking happy and healthy. "Thad," he said calmly, "I don't regret what I did. You took the most precious person from me, and I took everything else from you. We're even." I wanted to say something, apologize again, explain. But he just walked past. And I understood that forgiveness would never come. Never. "You know what the worst part is?" he added, stopping and turning back. "I actually felt bad about what I was going to do to you both. But then I walked in and saw you in my bed. And I realized you didn't just betray me. You disrespected everything I had built. That video, I watch it sometimes to remind myself why I can never trust like that again. You didn't just end my marriage, Thad. You ended my ability to believe in people." Those were the last words he ever spoke to me. Sophia never found a new job in education. Her reputation was ruined. The last information I heard, she was working as a waitress in Seattle, using her maiden name, trying to hide from her past. We never communicated again. What was between us turned out not to be the beginning of something new, but the end of everything we had before. I still work odd jobs, trying to get my guide license back. But even after 2 years, applications for reinstatement are denied. The civil judgment on my record, combined with the IRS violation, makes me unhireable in the tourism industry. Every day reminds me of that mistake by the lake, and especially that night in Christian's bedroom. Sometimes I look at photos from our joint trips with Christian, hiking trails, laughter around the campfire, simple moments of friendship, and I realize I lost much more than money or work. I lost my best friend, my integrity, and my future. Christian didn't just take revenge. He methodically and coldly destroyed our lives using the law and social condemnation. He proved that betrayal has a price, and that price is much higher than anyone can imagine. He took from us not only material things, he took away the possibility of living as we lived before. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Christian eventually started dating someone new, a woman who owns a coffee shop near his store. They seemed happy. He had moved on while Sophia and I were still paying for what we did. And the most terrible thing about this whole story is that he had the absolute right to do what he did. We destroyed his life first, and he simply responded in kind, but much more effectively. He didn't break the law. He didn't resort to violence. He used the system, social pressure, and cold calculation to ensure we suffered as much as he had suffered. Every time I think about that night, I remember the look on his face when he stood in that doorway. It wasn't the look of a heartbroken husband. It was the look of a man who had already decided our fates and was simply confirming his decision. He had stopped loving Sophia weeks before he caught us. He had stopped considering me a friend the moment the detective showed him the first photographs. That night wasn't about catching us. It was about ensuring we could never deny what we had done. The video he recorded? He never made it public, but its existence hung over us like a sword. Sophia lived in fear that it would surface. I lived in fear that future employers would somehow see it. The power of that video wasn't in its distribution. It was in its potential distribution. Christian held our reputations in his hand and could destroy them completely at any moment. That psychological torture was part of his revenge. 3 years have passed now. I'm 34, living in a small apartment, working as a delivery driver. My parents are disappointed, but try not to show it. My father once asked me what happened, why I threw away everything I had built. I couldn't tell him the truth. How do you explain to your father that you destroyed your life for something that wasn't even real? Sophia, I heard, left Seattle and moved to California. She's trying to rebuild under a different name. The kindergarten incident followed her. Background checks revealed the circumstances of her termination. She can't work with children anymore. Last I heard, she was doing administrative work for a small company, living quietly, avoiding social media, avoiding anything that might connect her to her past. Christian? His store expanded to 2 locations. He got married to the coffee shop owner. They have a baby on the way. Charlie is still with him, older but happy. And Christian has completely erased Sophia and me from his life. Mutual friends told me he never mentions our names, never acknowledges our existence. We are dead to him, and in a way, that's worse than his anger would have been. The most painful realization came to me late one night about a year ago. I was scrolling through old photos on my phone, photos I should have deleted long ago. Pictures of the 3 of us, Christian, Sophia, and me, at various events over the years. Birthday parties, hiking trips, casual dinners. We looked happy. We looked like family. And I realized that Christian's revenge wasn't just about punishing us for the affair. It was about punishing us for destroying that family, for taking something pure and good and corrupting it beyond repair. Sophia and I didn't just betray Christian. We betrayed the friendship, the trust, the years of shared experiences. We took something valuable and threw it away for momentary gratification. And Christian made sure we understood the true cost of that choice. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had said no that first time Sophia reached out. If I had maintained boundaries, been a real friend to both of them instead of a source of comfort for her and a betrayal to him. My life would be completely different. I'd probably still be running tours, still have my license, still have my best friend. But I made a choice, and that choice defined the rest of my life. The irony isn't lost on me that I'm now a cautionary tale. I know people talk about us, about the guy who destroyed his best friend's marriage and lost everything. I know our story gets told at bars, at parties, as an example of what not to do. And I can't even be angry about it, because it's all true. Christian's revenge was perfect because it was legal, methodical, and absolutely devastating. He didn't need violence. He didn't need to break the law. He simply used every tool available to him. The detective, the lawyer, the evidence, the social network, the legal system, to ensure that Sophia and I paid the maximum price for what we did. And we are still paying that price. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.